Well, now that we've looked back, we want to take a look ahead at what's next for Occupy Wall Street. And for that, I'm joined by Occupy Los Angeles activist Matt Ward. Hey there, Matt. Let's talk about how this movement has evolved. Hey there. What is Occupy Wall Street today?
Well, I think that Occupy Wall Street has really horizontalized and has moved into communities in a far more comprehensive way. The dead part of Occupy Wall Street would be the eternally long encampment model. I think that was a tactic that was immensely valuable, and I think that we're going to continue to see ourselves revisiting that concept, but it really unlocked the potential of what's possible at the drop of a hat if you have a group of people who are dedicated to effecting meaningful change.
Let's get into some of the specifics. I mean, Occupy has been working on the housing crisis in California to stop banks from foreclosing on homeowners. Do you think this is a branch off of Occupy or just sort of a different direction that it's taking?
Well, I can only speak for here in Los Angeles. I was part of forming Occupy Fights Foreclosures, which is a subcommittee of Occupy LA here. So we are definitely still intrinsically linked with the larger movement. And we feel that the message of defending homeowners, of trying to be Robin Hood, of refusing to accept money, and in trying to organize neighborhoods organically to defend themselves and to support each other and to show solidarity. We think that that's the greatest way that we can really continue to stick it to the banks while simultaneously helping people who need it the most.
And from what I understand, Matt, these are some of the tactics that have been most successful. What you're talking about, people who would have lost their homes are still living in them.
Yeah, well, we are not hindered by a lot of sort of the procedural limitations that attorneys and that other people are. You know, attorneys are constantly in danger of losing their bar certification if they do anything that sort of operates outside of the realm of the status quo. And I don't think it's any surprise that with a kangaroo court system as we have right now, that most of the success is coming from activists who are standing up for homeowners.
Occupy has refused, though, for the most part, to engage directly in the political realm. So unlike the Tea Party, for example, it's hard for a lot of people to determine the real impact that the movement's had. What do you think that the answer is in terms of, because obviously you who are kind of involved in this every day, you see the progress, you see the evolution, but it is important, I think you would agree, that other people who aren't involved also understand the results of Occupy. So how do we measure this?
Well, I think you actually can measure a lot of successes in a quantifiable fashion. It's just that, unfortunately, we don't have a mainstream media establishment that is a free press anymore. And just to tick through some of the accomplishments that we've had here in Los Angeles that no one really talks about too much. Starting out, within the first days of the occupation at City Hall, we sent 150 people inside to pressure City Council and actually to physically wake up. They were sleeping in their seats. To pressure them to wake up and to pass the responsible banking ordinance, which they did. That had been dead in committee for years. And we managed to bring that, revive that debate and got it passed, albeit in a watered down fashion. We moved on from there, and we're just talking about reformist changes here that people can really identify with in a direct fashion. But we moved on from there, and a gentleman with an Occupy Fights Foreclosures was critically instrumental in getting the Homeowners Bill of Rights passed. He flipped Richard Calderon, who was one of the three dissenting voices in a 3-3 tie that was intended to keep the Homeowners Bill of Rights dead in conference committee forever. Because particularly in election season, the Democrats knew that they had to continue to pretend to support the middle class. So they couldn't handle a vote like this that could pit them against sort of the middle class that could allow them to be seen as siding with the banks. Now, of course, Republicans, that's sort of their job, is to side with the banks, so they had no problem voting against it. But the moment that Calderon was flipped, it moved out of that committee to the larger committee. That had to get voted through quickly, and it landed on the floor, and it was signed into law within 2 weeks. Now, that is a legislative change that Occupy Los Angeles and Occupy Fights Foreclosures is I believe, legitimately a huge champion for.
Certainly.
Furthermore, right now we're also engaging with a bevy of different political groups and within activist communities, but also fundamentally, I think that we can see a tangible change in the way that people, I believe people feel more empowered I think that that's ultimately our greatest job, is to remind people that they're not alone, that they have far more power than they think, and that at the moment that they stand up together, they form a whole that's greater than the sum of its parts.
Matt, a new Politico article claims that Occupy Wall Street, quote, is over, based on the metric of mentions of the term income inequality. How much it was raised, how much that term was used in the media, and how that has gone down substantially. So what do you think? I mean, has the Occupy movement lost its ability to influence the discourse, or has it simply switched focuses?
Frankly, when you're inside the belly of the beast and you see everything that's happening, articles like that really speak truth to the power that the mainstream establishment is terribly afraid of what we're doing. I take articles like that as a sign of huge success, because when I look at our Fights Foreclosures meetings, which happen on Sundays and Thursdays right near Union Station in Los Angeles, we started out with, 6, 10 people. Then it was 15, then it was 20. Now it's between 40 and 60 people. And these are homeowners. These are homeless people who are willing to go out and defend other people's houses because they understand that this assault by the banks is going to completely undermine the entirety of our society. So I take things like that as a show of success, and I take great pride in hearing how afraid the bankers, the political establishment, and the mainstream media are afraid of what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think you can always look at it from a different perspective as well. Income inequality may only be used a few hundred times a month now, but there was a time, Matt, when it was being used thousands of times in stories in the mainstream media, in alternative media, and by average people who never knew what the difference between the 99% and the 1% even was. So the discourse we did see make a change, even if it's not as apparent right now, because, of course, the mainstream media is talking about other things, maybe the election being one of them. We appreciate having you on the show. Occupy Los Angeles activist Matt Ward.
Thank you very much.